Hello, everybody. Sorry if I look a little sweaty right now. It's like here in Southern California where I'm at, it's like 92 degrees. So, you'd expect this type of heat more like in the summertime, but yeah, we're getting it here in late February. So, anyways, so so today is Friday, February the 27th, second to the last day of February, of course. Of course, we're going to, of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Hope everybody's had a good week. Um, yeah, as I said, we're just waiting on people to come in. So, um, friendly reminder to everybody, of course, as always, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, had us, didn't get around to watching cartoons as of yet for today, so I'll probably be doing that after the show, but was catching up on some other stuff, of course. Um, let's see now, what time is it? Like just after the 2 minute mark. Yeah, so anyways, as I said, hopefully everybody's had a good month thus far. We're almost we're almost 1/6 of the way through 2026. Um, as I said, we're just waiting, giving people a chance to come in before we get started. Again, of course, a friendly reminder to everybody on both my Rumble and YouTube channels. If you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right, so now we're coming up on 3 minutes here. So I'll talk about now what's on tap for tonight. So now I got one article I'm going to go over from MeTV Tunes. Um, so apparently back in 1949, apparently Tex Avery predicted the internet, at least according to the headline that I just read there. We'll be looking at that article. We'll also be getting all caught up on all the latest in the world of professional wrestling, looking back to last night's Impact and Ring of Honor shows, looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown as they, of course, prepare for tomorrow's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and then also be looking at what's on tap for tomorrow night's Collision, as well as AEW continues to build towards Revolution coming up in a couple weeks here. So, anyways, and then of course we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead then and let's consider getting started here. Well, let's get into the article here. Now, Tex Avery, for those of you who may not remember, don't know, or may not remember, Tex Avery, of course, has worked over, granted, probably known more for his work at MGM than Warner Brothers, but he's worked for Warner Brothers, MGM, known a lot for his wacky style of cartooning. He gave us, I know he gave us Screwy Squirrel. He gave us, Droopy as well, I believe. So, um, but anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. All right, so Ted Avery predicted the internet in 1949. So 1949, that would have been about what? 77 years ago? 77 years ago? So, well, except for the flying plungers. Article was published yesterday at 10:27 a.m. by MeTV10 staff. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. Tex Avery was a cartoonist ahead of his time with his MGM theatrical short, The House of Tomorrow. It was part of a satirical series parodying promotional films that imagined what life would be like in the year 2050. So I believe that cartoon came out around 1949, 1950, was set, obviously 100 years into the future, obviously. And we're not too far. We're only 24 years away from like 24 years away from 2050. So go figure. See, 2050, I'll be like 74 going on 75 at that point. So anyways, the short begins with the house unfolding out of a small box and building itself into a large event. Now, of course, MGM was not the only one who had cartoons like this. Everybody, of course, in the space, as we're coming out of World War II and getting into the 50s and 60s here, and a lot of people were coming home from the war, even though we also had the brief intermission of the Korean War in there, 1950 1953. But overall, domestically, we were like moving ahead, progressing. Had a lot of modern conveniences that today we would take for granted. Things like microwaves and all that were developed, and and TV dinners all be developed in the 50s and 60s, the quote unquote space age. But anyways, out of a small box and building itself into a large mansion. Then Avery takes us through the house and the many newfangled inventions in it, while wedging in plenty of mother-in-law jokes. There are tanning lamps with a giant spatula that flips you over, a robot sandwich maker, and even 3-screen televisions. But it's one unnamed invention that's captured our attention. And I wonder what that unnamed invention could possibly be. Anyone wish to hazard a guess? And we, of course, continue on here. Let's see what he has to say here. A child walks up to a box that looks like a television or stereo. It's adorned with candy, ducklings, and a rocket ship on top. 2. The narrator describes it as, quote, this modern little wonder relieves mother and dad of the problem of answering Junior's many questions, unquote. Then the kid presses the button and prattles off. What is a brain? How old am I? I want a bicycle. Can I have a candy? What's a Republican? I want a nickel. Why do we eat? Is Santa Claus real? Can I go to the show? This box appears to be fulfilling in the role of a search engine for the kid until it yells, ah, shut up! The little hatch lifts and a plunger flies out. and plugs the kid's mouth. Yeah, I think while it would have been that would have been funny back then, and I'm sure a lot of parents were thinking, man, I wish I had something that could take care of my kid and his many doggone darn questions and handle them like that. But now I think since we do have the internet, I think it's one of those things where some people are, it's like the old Chinese proverb goes, be careful what you wish for, right? Some people would make the argument that the internet, as wonderful as it is and as much as it opens us up to the world, there also is a dark side to it as well that we have to be on guard for. So, the kid in his bratty little sailor suit definitely has iPad kid energy. So Tex Avery's prediction about children relying on the internet for every piece of information, in parentheses, or for chat GPT to do their homework, in parentheses, still holds weight today. What do you think? Did Tex Avery accurately predict Google? Do you wish a plunger would fly out of your computer when you've been on the internet too long? No, I don't. There might be some parents who kind of wish it would for the kids. But anyways, watch the Tom and Jerry show on MeTV Tunes, weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 Pacific. Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, 1 Pacific. And Sundays at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 Central, 6 Pacific. There you go. So now let's see if all right, so let's see where are we at? Okay. Only 12. All right, so still got some time here. All right, so, and it doesn't look like there's anything else here newsworthy wise, so what shall I do then? We still have some time. Oh, let me go ahead to see something here. I don't know if we did anything. If we did Tex Avery's. Oh wait. No. Cancel. That's not what I wanted to do right there. Let me see. Shall I? I don't know. Did I do Tex Avery before? All right, maybe we'll do a little career retrospective of Tex Avery here, or at least look at his because I think I did do it at least up to a certain point before. Maybe we'll look at we'll take a peek at Avery's work at MGM. Maybe we'll highlight that for tonight. See that, and then we'll go on. Then we'll and after that, depending upon the time, figure out what next to do. So, anyways, so let's see now. So 15 minutes, all right. So let's take a look at Tex Avery's work at MGM here. And again, a friendly reminder, of course, to everybody, if you haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So let's go ahead and take a look here at Tex Avery's MGM work. And there's, of course, Jerky Turkey, one of the things that was directed by on the right there. So on September 2nd, 1941, the Reporter announced that Avery had signed a 5-year contract, so 41 to 46, with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, most of us know it as MGM, where he was to form his own animation unit and direct shorts in Technicolor. By 1942, Avery was in the employ of MGM, working for their cartoon division under the supervision of Fred Quimby. Avery felt that Schlesinger had stiffed him. When asked if he missed the Looney Tunes characters, he responded, quote, "Sometimes, but I don't miss anything else. MGM is a heck of a better place to work in every way, and the people here are just as great." Now, mind you, in that time period, in the early to mid 40s, you had, along with Tex Avery, you also had William Hanna and Joseph Barbera before they went on to form Hanna-Barbera Productions. So you had quite a talent pool there of animators right there. Of course, Hanna and Barbera gave us Tom and Jerry and all that. And I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back. I'll put some music on while I'm gone. Yeah, I completely forgot about that part, didn't I? La 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 la. Alright, I'll be right back. All right. Well, anyways, getting back to the. All right. So, anyways, getting back to the article here. At MGM, Avery's creativity reached its peak. His cartoons became known for their sheer lunacy, breakneck pace, and penchant for playing with the medium of animation and film in general, and few other directors dared to approach. MGM also offered him larger budgets and a higher quality production level than the Warner Brothers studio. Plus, his unit was filled with talented ex-Disney artists such as Preston Blair and Ed Love. These changes were evident in Avery's first short released by MGM, Blitzwolf, an Adolf Hitler parody of the Three Little Pigs story, which was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Short Subject Cartoons in 1942. Avery's cartoons at MGM somewhat felt like Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons done during the same period at Warner Brothers, albeit the Brothers series gained more popularity than Avery's MGM cartoons. Yeah, one of the more notable ones that we're talking about, of course, was Screwy Squirrel. But anyways, Avery's best-known MGM character debuted in Dumbhounded, 1943. Droopy, originally Happy Hound, in parentheses there, was a small, calm, slow-moving, and slow-talking dog who always won out in the end. Of course, as voiced through most of his shorts by the late, great Bill Thompson. You know what? I'm happy. Uh, anyways, whatever whatever difficulties he faced, he also created a series of risque cartoons, beginning with Red Hot Riding Hood, also 1943. Red would be a recurring character in MGM shorts throughout the 40s up until like 1949. Of course, she'd star in many of her own shorts, but she would also um, she along with Wolfie from Red Hot Riding Hood would have spots and Droopy as well. So um, featuring a sexy female star who never had a set name, but has been unofficially referred to as Red by fans. Mm-hmm. Her visual design and voice varied somewhat between shorts. Other Avery characters at MGM included Screwy Squirrel, who ran from 1944 to 1946, but only ran for a total of 6 shorts, I believe, doing 5 or 6 shorts, due in large part. In fact, he just wasn't all that part of it, as voiced by Wally Mayer. Screwy Squirrel was just viewed as being too obnoxious. And that's why he didn't really catch on like Droopy did. Butch Dog and Of Mice and Men inspired duo George and Jr. Other MGM cartoons directed by Avery included Bad Luck Blackie, Cellbound, Magical Maestro, Lucky Ducky, Ventriloquist Cat, and King Size Canary. Avery began his stint in MGM working with lush colors and realistic backgrounds. Now, as I've read numerous times as I've been watching the Golden Age shorts, that was a hallmark of the Golden Age. It's just how detailed the artwork was, how detailed the backgrounds were, how they really went the extra mile to really put together the cartoon, right? So, but he slowly abandoned this style for a more frenetic, less realistic approach. The newer, more stylized look reflected the influence of the up-and-coming UPA studio. Um, UPA, which would eventually produce cartoons for Columbia after Screen Gems decided to devote more of their work towards television in 1948, as UPA would become the producers of the cartoons from starting in 1940, towards the latter half of 1948 onward. UPA would be the production house that would produce the cartoons that were distributed by by Columbia Pictures, which of course would of course include, they would inherit the Fox and Crow shorts and make them part of the Jolly Frolic series early on, and then of course eventually they'd bring in like Mr. Magoo and Gerald McBoing Boing as part of that as well. The need to cut costs as budgets grew higher, and Avery's own desire to leave reality behind and make cartoons that were not tied to the real world of live action. During this period, he made a series of films that explored the technology of the future, which, of course, we were talking about one of those with the House of Tomorrow bit. We were just talking about that in the previous article we read, of course. Okay, The House of Tomorrow, The Car of Tomorrow, The Farm of Tomorrow, and TV of Tomorrow. Spoofing common live-action promotional shorts for the time, in parentheses there. He also introduced a slow-talking wolf character who was a prototype for MGM Associates Hanna-Barbera's Huckleberry Hound character, right down the voice by Daws Butler. So, a slow-talking wolf. Maybe Hokey Wolf, I guess, but Hokey wasn't like slow talking though. But anyways, Avery took a year sabbatical from MGM, beginning in 1950, in parentheses, to recover from overwork, during which time Dick Lundy, recently arrived from the Walter Lantz studio, took over his unit and made one Droopy cartoon, as well as a string of shorts featuring Barney Bear. Barney Bear, who was originally created by Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising back in 1939, and would run shorts between, of course, Barney Bear series of theatrical shorts ran from 1939 all the way up to 1954. So, and initially voiced by Rudolph Ising before he and Hartman left. Avery returned to MGM in October 1951 and began working again. Avery's last two original cartoons for MGM were Deputy Droopy and Cellbound. Completed in 1953 and released in 1955, they were co-directed by the Avery unit animator, Michael Law. Law began directing a handful of CinemaScope Droopy shorts on his own on March 1st, 1953. Avery's unit was terminated and he was fired from MGM. Fred Quimby spoke of bringing back the unit, but in December of that year, Walter Lantz announced that Avery would be working for him. So essentially, once they fired Avery's unit, or his basically his animation team, Walter Lantz picked him up. And yes, Walter Lantz had him do a number of shorts as well. But with that, that's all we'll have for that. Let me see. Is there anything here that I get? Let me do a little screwy squirrel. Um, let's talk a little bit about screwy squirrel, or initially dubbed screwball squirrel. Let's talk a little bit about him for a moment. So let's find out who this screwy squirrel was and how long his career lasted. So let's first get the basics out of the way here. So Screwy Squirrel seen in Screwball Squirrel 1944. First appearance Screwball Squirrel April 1st, 1944, which was 81 years ago. Actually, yeah, I guess it would be 81. And then Lonesome Lenny, March 9th, 1946, which will mark 80 years since that. Created by Tex Avery, designed by Claude Smith. Voiced, at least earlier on, from 1944 to 1946, of course, voiced by Wally Maher primarily, and then with some spot, um, a couple of little. William Hanna did him a little bit in 1944. Pinto Colvig, known for his time as Goofy, did him in 1945. Let's see, in-universe information, alias, Screwball Squirrel, Screwy the Screwball Squirrel. Let's see, species, American Red Squirrel, gender, male. All right, so I got some of the basics out of the way. Let's look at some of the information here on Screwy Squirrel. Let's see. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream so we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that, let's get into this next article here. So Screwy Squirrel, also known as Screwball Squirrel in parentheses here, is an animated cartoon character, an anthropomorphic squirrel, created by Tex Avery for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Among some of the more outrageous cartoon characters, Screwy's feats include pulling objects out of thin air, doubling himself, and breaking the fourth wall, all the while uttering a characteristic cackling laugh. The character was not as successful as Avery's Droopy was in this time, appearing in only 5 cartoons: Screwball Squirrel in 1944, Happy Go Nutty in 1944, Big Heat Watha in 1944, and then 1 cartoon each in 45 and 46, The Screwy Truant in 1945, and Lonesome Lenny in 1946. I just saw Lonesome Lenny the other day, of course. Basically, Screwy is brought in as a pet for a lonely dog named Lenny, who has a tendency to over affectionately squeeze his little playmates to death. So let's look at least at his biography from his time that he. So the character was known for being brash and erratic, with few sympathetic personality characteristics such as Bugs Bunny's nobility and Daffy Duck's pathos. Most of his cartoons had him paired with Meathead Dog, voiced by screenwriter Cal Howard in The Screwball Squirrel, Tex Avery in Happy Go Nutty, and Pinto Colvig in The Screwy Truant. as his adversary. Meathead's physical appearance differed between the three shorts, which he appeared in parentheses, with his ears changing color from gray blue to black and Happy Go Nutty, and donning a new color palette in the Screwy Truant. But otherwise, the character remained the same. With Meathead Dog was kind of another kind of slow-witted adversary in this case for the main character. Came out of that. So Screwy's shorts revolve around his infliction of various forms of torture on Meathead or another enemy for 7 minutes, often doing so by breaking any sort of laws of reality. In the Screwy Truant, one gag has Screwy hitting Meathead over the head with everything he can find in a trunk labeled, quote unquote, assorted swell stuff to hit dog on head. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? When he finishes, Meathead remarks, quote, gee whiz, he hit me with everything but the kitchen sink, unquote. Screwy responds with, quote, well, don't want to disappoint you, chum, then pulls out that very item and bashes him over the head with it. Again, another classic example of be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. Screwy would make his last regular appearance in the 1946 short Lonesome Lenny, a broad parody of the character of George and Lenny from the John Steinbeck novel of Mice and Men. In the cartoon, Screwy gets adopted from a pet store by a wealthy woman as a new companion for pet Lenny, a large, dim-witted dog with unfathomable strength. By the end of the cartoon, Lenny reveals that he accidentally, quote unquote, killed Screwy by crushing him to death with a hug, with him lifting up the squirrel's flattened body from his pocket as evidence. However, Screwy suddenly opens his eyes and brings a sign out from behind his back that reads, quote, sad ending, isn't it, unquote, implying that he is still alive. Now, the reason, obviously, they had to do that, because by this point, the Hays Code was well in force here, and the idea of even animal characters, even in the guise of what comes naturally, you could not obviously depict the death of a character on TV at this point in time in the 1940s. Well, actually, that wasn't even. Actually, I'm sorry, that wasn't even on TV. That was actually, because that was 1946. That was still in the theaters as well. So the reason as to why Screwy was discontinued after 5 cartoons was said to be that Tex Avery grew to openly dislike the character. Animator Mark Kozler used to send Avery letters about his rendition of Screwy, only for Avery to throw away anything related to the character. So apparently, I guess Tex got kind of tired of Screwy. But then, from what I've also heard on that too, what I've heard on some of the commentaries I've heard on it or read on it, I think a lot of people simply found Screwy Squirrel to be a little too obnoxious. He kind of crossed that line from being funny to obnoxious, and that's what kind of burnt that bridge, as it were. All right, so I think we covered quite a bit of material there. So we're up to like 40-minute mark now in the show. So I guess I can move on to wrestling wrap up at this point. So now we're gonna, of course, take a look back. We're gonna go ahead and take a look back at last night's, of course, TNA Impact and Ring of Honor shows, as well as look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as tonight will be the Go Home SmackDown before tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber. We did have some news this past week, where, like, on Raw, Liv Morgan made her final decision clear that she was going to go after Stephanie Vaquera. So when we preview the Elimination Chamber match, we'll have some updated information for that. And of course, we'll look ahead to tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber as well as AEW's Collision as they continue to build towards Revolution pay-per-view in about a couple weeks here. So let me go ahead and grab that. So we'll take a look first off at last night's Thursday Night Impact. So last night's Thursday Night Impact, which aired on AMC from the Pinnacle in Nashville, Tennessee, with Tom Hannafan and Matthew Rainwalt on commentary, and Frankie Kazarian at one point joining them on commentary. In the opening tag match, you had Nick and Ryan Nemeth, the Nemeths, defeating Leon Slater and Mike Santana to get the win. One of the headlines I did read was that Nick Nemeth had scored the pinfall on Slater, continuing to kind of build towards the idea because Nemeth, along with Slater and Eddie Edwards, all of course have claims to challenge for the TNA World Championship. Nick Nemeth, of course, is still holding the Gauntlet Cup, being a co-winner. Frankie Kazarian obviously already cashing in his portion of the Gauntlet Cup challenge. Then in the second match, Danny Luna defeated Lei Ying Lee, 10 minutes, 16 seconds. Lei Ying Lee had Brooks in her corner. And then AJ Francis would defeat Mance Warner by DQ in about 4.5 minutes. Jada Stone would get a certain amount of revenge on Tasha Steelz after having lost in the tag match in the mixed tag match between her and Elijah on one team and Tasha Steelz and Mustafa Ali on the other. I need to step away from the computer for a moment. I'll be right back. Put some music on while I'm gone. Sorry about that. My throat was starting to feel a little prickly there, so I had to get some water. So, anyways, I had to get back to the wrestling wrap up here. So we continue on with the looking up the TNA results here. So following the Jada Stone Tasha Steelz match, the main event saw the system of Cedric Alexander, Bear Bronson, Eddie Edwards, and Brian Myers defeat the four-man team of the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, and the Righteous Dutch and Vincent, and a big 8-man tag main event. So that's all that went down on on TNA. So let's now go ahead and take a look at what happened on last night's Ring of Honor Club. Which took place in the Front Wave Arena in Oceanside, California. Opening match saw Adam Priest defeat JD Drake, 7 minutes, 25 seconds. A tag team match, the Mighty Don't Kneel duo of Bad Dude Tito and Shane Haste defeated the Frat House duo of Griff Garrison and Cole Carter. Mighty Don't Kneel, of course, is a faction that is known more in New Japan. And also the faction that has, of course, Zack Sabre Jr. leading it. Among others. And then in a match, the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title, Red Velvet successfully defended the title against Zeta Steel of Skyflight, as Priva Daniels was in her corner. In a big 8-man tag match, Big Bill, Brian Keith, and the Grizzled Young Veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson, with Isla Dawn in their corner, defeated the team of Che Cabrera, Dom Kubrick, Richie Slade, and CJ Tino in about 4.5 minutes. Then the team of Skyflight, Scorpio Sky and the Martin brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, defeated the team of Los Cervecitos of Ricky G, Adrian Quest, and Danny Rhodes. Jay Lethal with Blake Christian in his corner defeated Tommy Billington. Tommy Billington, the nephew of Tom Billington, the original Dynamite Kid from back in the 80s. Many of you might remember him as one half of the former WWF World Tag Team Champions, the British Bulldogs, alongside his cousin Davey Boy Smith. Then Satman Singh got the win over Jordan Oasis in just under 3 minutes. Persephone defeated Johnny Robbie in 5 minutes 43 seconds. And then Commander defeated Tony Nese. Tony Nese of the Premier Athletes. Then a proving ground match for the Ring of Honor World Television title, in which if the challenger had won the match or lasted the time limit, he would have earned a shot at the title. Nick Wayne, making his first in-ring appearance in about a couple months here, defeated Lucas Riley in 3 minutes 45 seconds. Of course, Nick Wayne had Mother Wayne and Kip Sabian in his corner. And then in a match for the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title, Deonna Purrazzo successfully defended the title against Trish Adora. So that's all from last night, of course. All from last night. So now let's move ahead to tonight. Look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, on the go-home edition of SmackDown before tomorrow's Elimination Chamber. Let's see what we have to look forward to tonight on SmackDown. Friday Night SmackDown, which will be airing on USA Network, coming from the KFC Yum Center in Lexington, Kentucky. The Miz is set to take on Oba Femi, as Oba looks to continue to make an impression on SmackDown with his power and stuff like that. In women's action, Candice LeRae is set to take on Jordynne Grace. In a match of the women's tag team titles, the team of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky take on the team now calling themselves the Irresistible Forces of Nia Jax and Lash Legend, and then Uncle Howdy from the Wyatt Six are set to take on Solo Sikoa of the MFTs in one-on-one action. So that's what you have to look forward to in terms of tonight's SmackDown, as it's a go-home SmackDown before tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber. And we will just move right into that. Talk about what's going to be going down on tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber. All right, now. So tomorrow night's Elimination Chamber, which will be coming from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois, airing on ESPN. 4 matches have been signed. Becky Lynch will be defending the WWE Women's Intercontinental title against AJ Lee, seeking to squash AJ Lee once and for all, to get her out of her hair, as it were. Now, since this last Monday, Liv Morgan had made her choice to challenge Stephanie McCare for the WWE Women's World title, the Women's Elimination Chamber now will be for the number one contendership for the WWE Women's title, meaning that the winner of the Women's Elimination Chamber will earn a shot at Jade Cargill. Now, whether or not that shot will come at WrestleMania or sooner or later, I don't know, but basically, the winner of tomorrow night Women's Elimination Chamber will become the number one contender to the WWE Women's title. And in that match include Asuka, Alexa Bliss, Kiana James, Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, and Tiffany Stratton. And then in the men's number one contendership Elimination Chamber match for the undisputed WWE title, as the winner of this match will be set to take on Drew McIntyre. You have in the match, you have Javon Evans, LA Knight, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, and Trick Williams. Will be the winner of this match will earn a shot at Drew McIntyre for the undisputed WWE title. And set as the main event right now for the Elimination Chamber event will be for the WWE World Heavyweight title. CM Punk will be defending against Finn Balor. So that's all going down at the Elimination Chamber tomorrow night. And so now we will go ahead and take a look at what you can expect on tomorrow night's Collision. Tomorrow night's Collision, coming from the Mission Ballroom in Denver, Colorado, airing on TNT. Owning match is set to be in an 8-man tag match. The Don Callis family members of Josh Alexander, Lance Archer, Trent Beretta, and Rocky Romero to take on the Death Riders foursome of CMLL World Heavyweight Champion Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta. In a one-on-one match, the Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii, will be taking on Andrade El Idolo. In a women's match, 4-time AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm is set to take on Zeta Steele. looking to regain some momentum after his loss of the TNT title, Tommaso Ciampa will be taking on Jay Lethal in a one-on-one match. In a women's tag team match, the Brawling Birds of Jamie Hayter and Alex Windsor will be taking on the duo of Gypsy Mac and Tyra Rusami. In tag team action, Top Flight of the Martin brothers of Dante and Darius Martin take on the Don Callis family duo of TNT champion Kyle Fletcher and AEW International champion Kazuchika Okada in what would appear to be Okada's first time back on TV in about a few weeks. And then set as the main event right now in a women's tag team match at the Sisters of Sin, representing the Triangle of Madness faction of Sky Blue and Julia Hart to take on two former AEW World Tag Team Champions teaming together in Thunder Rosa and Chris Statlander. All right, so with that being said, we're done with the wrestling wrap-up. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look. But today being Friday, February 27th, 2026, let's take a look back at this day in Niche history. So first off, I'd like to wish a happy 50th birthday. To Japanese voice actress and singer Yukari Tamura, of course, who provided the voices of such characters, the Japanese voice characters such as Nanoha Takamichi in Magical Girl Lyrical Nanoha, Ten in Naruto, Ruru Cure Armor in Hug Pretty Cure, Ranfa Franbos in Galaxy Angel, Elizabeth Midford in Black Butler. Happy 50th birthday to Japanese voice actress and singer Yukari Tamura. I'm actually going to need to step away from the computer for another moment. I'll be right back. Keep it on my down. All right, I'm back now. So, anyways, all right, so we just talked about that. So, moving on now to the next piece in each history. We move ahead to the year 1980. Oops. We move ahead to the year 1986. Hit the wrong button there. 40 years ago today, on this date in the year 1986, on this date in the year 1986, the 335th issue of Tales of the Tales of the Legion of Superheroes went on sale on this date. This title started out as Superboy back in 1949. Eventually, would become the Tales of the Legion Superboy series. The title of the story was Election Day, as written by Paul Levitz. Um, Steve Lighty doing the penciling, Larry Manschelt doing the inking, John Costanza doing the lettering, and Carl Gaffer doing the coloring. It sold for 75 cents for 32 pages. So, on this date, 1986, 40 years ago today, the 335th issue of Tales of the Legion of Superheroes went on sale on this date back in 1986. So as we move ahead to the next piece in each history, as we move ahead to the year 2001, on this date in the year 2001, 25 years ago today. Grab that. On this date, 25 years ago today, Walt Disney's Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure, premiered in movie theaters on this date back in 2001. Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure is a 2001 American animated direct-to-video musical romantic comedy film produced by Walt Disney Television Animation and the sequel to Disney's 1955 animated feature film Lady and the Tramp. The film was directed by Darryl Rooney and Jeannie Rossell, with a screenplay by Bob Motz and Bob Roth. Stars Scott Wolf as Lady and Tramp's son Scamp, who desires to become a wild dog. In the film, Scamp runs away from his home and joins a gang of stray dogs called the Junkyard Dogs, where he falls in love with one of the gang's members, Angel. Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamp's Adventure, was released on February 27, 2001, to mixed reviews from critics. All right, and finally, as we move ahead to the year 2006, 20 years ago today, back in 2006 here, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Verizon Center, Washington, D.C. In the main event, saw Ric Flair defeat Carlito in just under 10 minutes. In a Money in the Bank qualifying, Shelton Benjamin defeated Chavo Guerrero Jr. In another Money in the Bank qualifying match, Rob Van Dam defeated Trevor Murdoch in just under 2 minutes. Trish Stratus successfully defended the WWE Women's Championship over Candice Michelle. And the opening of the show saw Big Show and Kane retain the World Tag Team Championships over Val Venis and Viscera. So there we go with that. I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we're back on Sunday. The Sunday, of course, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics, as we'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane. We'll be focusing on books that went on sale in August of 1940 from Dell Comics. So with that, I thank everybody for being here and hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.